Hello YouTube. I'm going to be reading from A New Concept of the Universe, written by Walter Russell. Thermodynamic Misconception. If polarity had been rightly understood by science, the thermodynamic laws and accepted principles would never have been written. Clausius originally wrote the second law of thermodynamics as follows. It is impossible for a self-acting machine to convey heat from one body to another at a higher temperature. This is not true, for nature is constantly doing just that thing in every expression of gravity. Every cold body of rain or snow heats as it falls to earth and conveys that heat to lift the higher temperature of the earth to a still higher temperature. Every cold body which is added by gravity to a larger body at higher temperature raises the temperature of both bodies by the added crushing, compressing weight of gravity. It is the office of gravity to compress, and it is the office of compression to heat, and it is the office of heat to throw off its hot bodies so they may cool and return as contracting bodies to again heat. Every cold body which approaches a larger body charges both bodies. Charging bodies heat. Conversely, every body which radiates from a larger body discharges both bodies. Discharging bodies cool. The cold of space heats hot suns hotter by the way of their poles, and hot suns radiate their heat by the way of their equators to form cooling rings, which again heat to become hot planets. The law is further explained by stating that an object will fall of its own accord from a higher to a lower level, but it will not rise on its own accord from a lower level to a higher level. This also is not true. Everything which falls towards one of the two polarized conditions of matter must rise towards the other opposite condition. The interchange is equal. The apple which falls of its own accord rises of its own accord. Water unites its particles into closer relationship in order to fall, then divides into more remote relationship in order to rise. Everything which emerges from space by the way of gravity is swallowed up by space by the way of radiation. This is as true of suns as it is of apples. Every sun which is projected into space by one swing of polarity's pendulum has its mate in a black, vicious hole of equal potential on the other side of its wave axis, which is waiting to swallow it up when the pendulum reverses its swing. The confusion of the observers which conceive that law is due to their not knowing of the balance of nature which polarity controls. They think of the apple as a heavy object which cannot rise as a heavy object. The layman thinks objectively of an apple as a solid object, but the scientist should think of the apple as one fleeting part of a whole cycle. The solid apple is that part of its cycle which has condensed from a large volume to become a small volume located at the apex of its spiral cone cycle. Scientists should think cyclically and not objectively. The apex of a cone, which one objectively thinks of as an apple, will expand to become the base of a cone which will eventually spiral into its apex on the bough of some tree to again become an apple. This is not an objective universe, it is cyclical. Objectively is but one stage of a cycle which is forever moving through many stages between the appearance and disappearance of what the senses interpret as objective. The astronomer should likewise think that the way of his suns and stars. It should be easier for the astronomer to think cyclically than for the physicist, for he can see his cone apices expand into cone bases for renewing into suns, in the same manner that apples expand to become cone bases for renewing into objective apple forms at cone apices. Had Newton thought that the way in relation to an apple, he would not have written such an inadequate, unnatural, and misleading law. Scientists should not think of sequential effects only, but should also think of the simultaneously workings of all two-way expressions. This is how nature works. As the solid apple falls, an equal potential simultaneously rises. If I put my hand down in water on an amount equal to that which is displaced by my hand simultaneously rises. As the apple falls, it simultaneously charges the earth and discharges space. When the apple rises, it simultaneously charges space and discharges the earth. The balance in potential between gravitating matter and radiating matter in every wave field is absolute. Scientific observers have never thought of it that way. They have not thought of space as being divided into definitely measured compartments such as wave fields. The more evacuated space there is in a wave field, the more solid is the matter which centers it and the greater the volume of space. As space cools more, its wave fields expand more in volume. Its central sun equally contracts and heats. Polarity divides all of its electric effects equally. The volume of negative space may be thousands or millions of times greater than the volume of its positive center, but their potentials are equal to the millionth of an ampere. If this were not so, the Kepler law, which says that equal areas in a radius vector are covered in equal time, would not be workable, nor would the cube ratios of acceleration and deceleration work out.